The Lighthouse Wife, Part 1. There's a moment in every long goodbye when the days stop feeling real. For Eleanor, it came on a Tuesday. The nurse had just left. The silence returned like it always did, soft, swollen, humming behind the walls. Her husband lay in the recliner by the window, his body still here but his spirit long adrift. 30 years of love now reduced to pill organizers, sips of broth, and the rhythmic wheeze of an oxygen tank. She looked at him, really looked, and for just a moment didn't recognize his face. Eleanor had always been steady. She ironed her napkins. She kept birthdays on a paper calendar. She returned library books on time. But this slow, cruel erosion of the man she loved was a tide she couldn't hold back. And so her mind began to wander. To escape, not in madness, not at first, more like a curtain gently shifting in a breeze. It began with a memory, their first vacation, coastal New England, early fall. He had pointed out a lighthouse from a cliffside drive, joked about retiring there. And she had laughed, imagined herself in wool and sea salt writing novels by candlelight. It was a silly dream. But now, as the real world dimmed, the dream returned. Only it wasn't silly anymore. It was sanctuary. She started closing her eyes while the tea steeped. Started listening for gulls instead of the news. In her mind, the house grew clearer. Rough white stone, a spiral staircase with iron rails, a hearth fire that crackled without smoke, curtains that danced in ocean wind, and him, her husband, whole again. Strong hands, easy laugh, always waiting at the top of the tower. At night, Eleanor stopped dreaming of people. Only the sea, only the lighthouse. The doctors called it disassociation, a response to prolonged grief and caretaking trauma. They offered pills. She stopped taking them. Reality had become a low-quality reproduction. The lighthouse was full color. She set a dinner plate for him, twice. She walked to the kitchen and forgot what she was carrying. She found herself standing in the middle of the living room, soaked from a rainstorm she didn't remember walking through. When neighbors came to check in, she would smile too long, answer questions with stories that made no sense. "Is she okay?" they whispered. But Eleanor wasn't slipping. She was climbing, one stone step at a time, back to the only place that felt like home. She no longer turned on the television. She lit candles instead, listened to the wind and waves in her head, spoke out loud to a man who no longer replied, except in the flicker of a memory or the smell of brine that wasn't really there. She wrote notes in a leather journal. "Sea rough today. He's mending nets. I baked bread, 2 gulls nested on the windowsill." Each entry more vivid than the last, and in those pages, her mind began to rewrite the world. Her husband passed quietly on a morning without sunlight. Eleanor did not cry. She did not call anyone for 2 days. She sat in the room, still as glass, listening to waves that didn't exist. The funeral came and went, a blur of hushed voices and polite casseroles. She barely noticed, because by now she could see it, the lighthouse. Clearly at all hours of the day, in reflections, in windows, in the corner of her vision when she blinked too long, it was waiting, calling. Weeks passed in silence, until one morning she stood up, brushed her hair, put on her coat, and began to drive. The road meandered like a dream. She had no destination, but every curve felt familiar. Fog kissed the windshield. Pines swayed like sentries. And then, just before the ocean revealed itself, she saw it. A dirt road, unmarked. Narrow, like it had always been there but hidden from the world. She followed it, and there, rising from the mist, was the lighthouse, whitewashed stone, weather-worn, exactly as she'd built it in the sanctuary of her unraveling mind. She stepped from the car. The wind greeted her like an old friend, and at the top window, he stood. Her lighthouse keeper. And in that moment she did not question, did not wonder, did not mourn, because she had made this world, brick by memory, wave by heartbeat, grief by longing, and now it was real. Eleanor stepped through the door. The old iron latch creaked, not from age but from memory. Inside, the air was cool, salt-touched, still. Stone walls rose around her in a spiral, everything as she had imagined, only now she could touch it. The wood grain of the steps, the gentle sway of lantern light. The faint hum of the sea, not behind her mind but beneath her feet. She climbed slowly, not out of age but reverence. Each step upward felt like shedding something. Grief, guilt, all the tethering threads of a life left behind. And then, at the top, she saw him. Not young, not old, just him, the version she had loved through every season. He turned, smiling like he had when he forgot where he put his keys, and said only, "Took you long enough." No shock, no questions, no explanations, just an embrace that felt like coming home. They stood in the lantern room, watching the sea through misted glass, and she understood. This place, this world, had not been built to escape reality. It had been built to receive her when it was time to let go. Time passed differently here. Some days they collected driftwood. Other days he fixed nets that never tore. She made bread from memory, kneading joy into flourless dough. Sometimes the gulls brought news from the world below. A wedding, a storm, a song she once loved, drifting in on the wind. But mostly, there was peace. Eleanor no longer wrote in journals. She didn't need to. The stories lived themselves. She and her husband slept with windows open, woke with the light, walked the cliffs in silence, or sang old songs that neither had remembered in years. There was no pain here. No forgetting, only presence. And the lighthouse. The lighthouse continued its work. Every night, he lit the lamp, and she stood by as the beam swept across the water, watching, guiding, welcoming. Some say it's a myth that those who lose too much sometimes create worlds too beautiful to be broken. Others say love is a kind of portal, and some believe the sea knows how to call people home. But Eleanor, she never needed to explain, because in the life she left behind, grief had eaten through her like rust on steel, and in this life, she was whole. A wife, a keeper, a light. And if one evening you happen to walk a quiet stretch of coastline where the fog clings low and the sky feels wide, you may catch a flicker in the distance, a tower, a lamp, a silhouette in the window waiting, and maybe, just maybe, you'll feel something inside you stir. Something gentle, something lost. And you'll understand what Eleanor came to know, that some lighthouses aren't built to warn you away, they're built to call you home.
I don't keep track of time anymore, not in the way I used to. There are no calendars here, no appointments, no clocks ticking in another room. There is only the rhythm of the tide, and the way the light shifts when the sea begins to change. I've learned to read the water. It speaks, in hushes and sighs, in sudden gusts and silver stillness. It doesn't ask for anything, it just listens. Sometimes I speak to it. I tell it stories not about what happened, but about who we were before the world got heavy. The gulls still come, the lamp still turns. Every evening, I climb the spiral stair. Yes, I still climb it, and I light the flame. It hums quietly as it turns, casting its glow across the waves. I stand by the glass and watch it stretch like a hand reaching out. Not to warn, not to frighten, just to say, "You're not alone, there is still a light. Come home when you're ready." I think that's what this place is. Not an escape, not a dream, but a waiting room for the soul. A space between breaths. He still comes and goes. My husband, sometimes he tends the garden. Sometimes he disappears for days at sea. But when I need him, he's there, like the beam of the lighthouse, in and out of view, but constant. Do I miss the world? Sometimes the smell of coffee in a crowded diner, old record stores, the way his hand felt wrapped around mine when we were both still afraid of losing things. But then the wind changes, the mist rises, and the cliffs remind me I am exactly where I'm meant to be. If you ever find yourself drifting, not sure what's real anymore, not sure what's left to hold. Look for the light. It may not look the way you expected. It may not speak your name aloud, but it will know you. It will remember. It will wait. And when you arrive, I'll be here, on the other side of the storm, with tea by the fire, and the lamp already lit.
Thank you for listening. May you find peace even in the fog.